Assalamu alaikum students, a very good morning to you all. I hope you all are fine and doing great. Today we'll be discussing a very important topic, that is drugs used for the treatment of amoebiasis. Amoebiasis is a protozoal disease. It is a protozoal infection which is produced by Entamoeba histolytica. So we'll be discussing all the drugs which are used for its treatment. So I want you to keep your notebook and pen by your side and note down all the important points being told to you during the lecture. So let's get started. Let's check out today's learning objectives first. By the end of today's lecture, you should be able to classify the drugs used to treat amoebiasis. You should be able to write down their mechanism of action, clinical uses, and adverse effects. And the most important drug which is often asked in exams is metronidazole. It comes by the name of Flagyl. You all must have heard about it. So that is really important. Before discussing the drugs used for the treatment of the disease, let's get a brief introduction of amoebiasis. Amoebiasis is an infectious disease which is caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Entamoeba histolytica is a parasite, is a protozoa. Amoebiasis affects about 10% of the world's population, and it is estimated to infect 50 million people worldwide, and it can kill around 100,000 people annually, and it is considered to be the third leading cause of death from parasitic diseases worldwide. So you can understand that how important it is to treat this disease. But it is seen mostly among the individuals living in poverty, crowded conditions, and areas with poor sanitation.
So amoebiasis is basically a protozoal infection and it is caused by Entamoeba histolytica, and the disease is transmitted through fecal-oral route. The protozoa, it exists in two forms, the cystic form and the trophozoite form. The transmission of disease is caused by cystic form as it is present in the feces and is responsible for contamination of food and water. And after taking in the contaminated food and water, the cysts, they reach into the intestinal lumen where it is transformed into trophozoite. The trophozoite, either it will live on the surface of colonic mucosa and it will produce a mild illness, or it will be transformed into cyst and it will be excreted out in feces, and in this way the disease will be transmitted from one person to another. Or it will invade the mucosa and it can produce dysentery, in which blood and mucus is present in the diarrhea. Occasionally the trophozoites, they pass into the bloodstream and they reach the liver via portal vein and they cause amoebic liver abscess. This is a form of extraintestinal amoebiasis, and very rarely other organs like lungs, spleen, kidney and brain are involved. And in the tissues, only trophozoite form is present, cystic form is not present in the tissues, and the tissue phase is always secondary to the intestinal amoebiasis, and intestinal amoebiasis may be asymptomatic. So if a person is asymptomatic carrier, it means that the disease is only present in the intestinal lumen, and in that case we'll give the drugs which will act over here, which are luminal amoebicides. And if it is producing intestinal symptoms, means it has invaded the intestinal mucosa, the patient is having diarrhea or dysentery, or we are having extraintestinal manifestation in the form of liver abscess, then we will give tissue amoebicides. Clear? So these are the different forms of amoebiasis, and these different forms the disease can present. Either the patient can be either the patient can have asymptomatic intestinal infection, means he's just a carrier and he's not having any symptoms, or he might have mild to moderate colitis. And if the trophozoite has invaded the intestinal mucosa, the patient will present with dysentery. The patient may have amoeboma, hepatic abscess, or other extraintestinal infections. So the drug of choice depends upon the form of amoebiasis.
There are different types of amebicides. They can be luminal or systemic or tissue. Luminal amebicides are the drugs which act in the intestinal lumen. These are diloxanide furoate, iodoquinol, and peromomycin. Peromomycin is an aminoglycoside. And systemic or tissue amebicides are dihydroamidine, amidine, and chloroquine. Chloroquine kills the Entamoeba histolytica trophocytes and it is highly concentrated in the liver. That's why it is used for the treatment of hepatic amoebiasis only. It is not used for the treatment of intestinal disease. Then there are metronidazole and tinidazole, which have mixed actions. They are useful in the intestinal and extraintestinal amoebiasis in both type of the diseases. Tinidazole is an analog of metronidazole. They both are equally efficacious, but tinidazole has a longer duration of action and it has a better safety profile. So it is easier to take because we have to take it once or twice a day, whereas metronidazole is taken thrice daily. And many people, they tolerate tinidazole better. So you must know the names of all these drugs. This classification is really important and it is clinical classification. So first of all, we'll discuss metronidazole, which is the most important drug clinically as well as from examination point of view. Metronidazole is a nitroimidazole chemically, and it is the mixed amebicide of choice for treating amoebic infections. It is available in oral, intravenous, and topical preparations, and it is widely distributed to the body tissues and fluids. Its mechanism of action is very important and is often asked in exams. It undergoes a reductive bioactivation of its nitro group by ferredoxin, and ferredoxin is present in anaerobic parasites and bacteria, which then forms a reactive cytotoxic product that interferes with the nucleic acid synthesis of the bacteria or the protozoa. Clear? So first of all, its nitro group needs to be activated, and it is activated by ferredoxin, two reactive cytotoxic products that then interfere with the nucleic acid synthesis. Spectrum of activity is very important, and by now you must know the difference between the spectrum of activity or antimicrobial spectrum and the clinical uses. So the spectrum means you have to write down the name of the microbes, the bacteria, the protozoa or the viruses against which the drug is active, and in clinical uses we just name the diseases. So as we discussed, it is active against the anaerobic bacteria and protozoa. It is amoebicidal, trichomonacidal and bactericidal. So it is active against anaerobic gram-positive cocci like Peptostreptococcus species, anaerobic gram-positive bacilli like Clostridium, anaerobic gram-negative bacilli like Bacteroid species, and anaerobic Coccobacilli like Gardnerella vaginalis. And you know, Clostridium difficile, it produces pseudomembranous colitis, and metronidazole and vancomycin are given for its treatment. It is also active against microaerophilic bacteria like Helicobacter pylori and Campylobacter, and in triple and quadruple therapy, you have studied that for eradication of H. pylori, metronidazole is used. And it is active against the anaerobic protozoa like Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia lamblia, and Trichomonas vaginalis. And it is drug of choice for the treatment of all these three protozoal diseases. Now the clinical indications. Whenever you get a question about the clinical indications, you must write it down under two headings: the protozoal infections and the bacterial infections, since this drug is active against protozoal and bacterial diseases both. So it is used for the treatment of amoebiasis in both intestinal and liver abscess diseases, in giardiasis and trichomoniasis. It is used for bacterial infections like pseudomembranous colitis, anaerobic or mixed intra-abdominal infections, brain abscess, bacterial vaginosis. It is given for the eradication of H. pylori in gastric ulcers, for the treatment of periodontal infections if somebody is having tooth infection, gum infection, or someone has undergone a dental procedure then the dental surgeon always gives metronidazole as a prophylactic agent and also for the treatment of these infections. It is used for the treatment of rosacea. Rosacea is a form of acne in which there is also redness and telangiectasias over the face, and it is used as an adjunct in the treatment of acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. Gingivitis is the inflammation of the gums. Now the adverse effects: it produces nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. It can produce a metallic taste, dry mouth, furry tongue, glossitis, stomatitis, and it can produce opportunistic fungal infection, dysuria, dark urine, headache, insomnia, dizziness, vertigo, numbness, paresthesias, ataxia, incoordination, encephalopathy, and seizures are rarely reported with metronidazole. Then it can produce leukopenia, urticaria, flushing, pruritus, and Stevens-Johnson syndrome. So if a drug is having so many adverse effects and so many clinical uses, it is definite that it will come in your exams. Metronidazole should be used with caution in patients with pre-existing liver disease, having active CNS disease because it is producing a lot of CNS adverse effects. It is contraindicated during pregnancy and lactation. So after the mixed amebicides, let's discuss the tissue amebicides. Tissue amebicides were amitin, dihydroamitin, and chloroquine. Chloroquine you have studied while discussing malaria, so we won't be going into its detail. The next drug that we'll be discussing is amitin and dihydroamitin.
So amitin is an alkaloid and it is derived from ipecac. Ipecac, you have studied it in emetics. Ipecac is an emetic agent, and as you can see from the name amitin, it also induces vomiting. And dihydroamitin is a synthetic analog. They are effective against tissue trophocytes of Entamoeba histolytica, but they have no activity against the cyst, so they cannot be used to treat asymptomatic carriers. And dihydroamitin is preferred over amitin because of its better toxicity profile. They basically inhibit the protein synthesis by blocking ribosomal movement along messenger RNA. They are used parenterally, either subcutaneously or intramuscularly, because if you will take it orally, it will be vomited out. And they are only used as backup drugs for the treatment of severe intestinal or hepatic amoebiasis together with the luminal agent in hospitalized patients. So they are not commonly used. They are only used as backup drugs for severe intestinal or hepatic amoebiasis. And since they cannot be used orally, therefore they are given in a hospital setting, and they are restricted to use in severe amoebiasis when metronidazole cannot be used. If due to some reasons we are not able to use metronidazole, then only we opt for amitin or dihydroamitin. Otherwise, these drugs are not usually used. Adverse effects of amitin are important and they can be asked in exams. It can produce pain, tenderness, and sterile abscesses at the injection site. Produces nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. It is an irritating agent. It produces local irritation. It can produce gastric irritation and also stimulates chemoreceptor trigger zone, thus ending up in nausea and vomiting. It produces muscle weakness, muscle stiffness, myositis, and cardiovascular changes like hypotension, ECG changes, myocarditis, arrhythmias, and heart failure. Uh, the adverse effect profile of dihydroamitin is much better as compared to amitin. That's why it is preferred over amitin. And you can memorize these adverse effects by the name of amitin: E. emesis, M. muscle weakness, muscle stiffness, myositis, E. ECG changes, T. tachycardia, arrhythmia, heart failure, myocarditis, I. injection site reactions or injection site adverse effects like pain, tenderness, and sterile abscess, and nausea. Clear? So it's easy. The next drug is diloxanide furoate. this is a luminal amebicide. So now we'll be discussing the luminal agents for treatment of amoebiasis. Diloxanide furoate is a dichloroacetamide derivative. You should know the chemical classification of the drugs as well. And it is an effective luminal amebicide, but it is not active against trophozoites. So it will only eradicate the cysts. As we discussed in metronidazole, that it is active against intestinal and extraintestinal trophozoites. Chloroquine is active only against the extraintestinal trophozoites, and diloxanide furoate is a luminal amebicide. It is active only against the cysts. So it is the drug of choice for asymptomatic infection. Okay. So it is commonly used as the sole agent for the treatment of asymptomatic amoebiasis. You might get this question in your exam, that which is the drug of choice for treatment of asymptomatic amoebiasis or for the treatment of asymptomatic carriers of the disease. So it is diloxanide furoate. It is also useful in mild intestinal disease when used with other drugs. So it is basically given after or along with the tissue amebicide to eradicate the cyst. As we have discussed that the tissue amebicides, they are eradicating the trophozoites. They have no action on the cysts. So we have to eradicate the cysts as well. For that, we give diloxanide furoate or any other luminal agent after or with the tissue amebicide. Clear? And the combination of diloxanide furoate with metronidazole is quite popular, and you might have used it. It comes by the name of entamizole. Okay, so entamizole is a combination of diloxanide furoate and metronidazole. Its adverse effects are nausea, abdominal cramps, flatulence, and rash. So clear? The mechanism of action of diloxanide furoate is not known, and it breaks down into diloxanide and furoic acid in the gut, and the unabsorbed diloxanide part is responsible for the antiamoebic activity, and it is active only against the cysts, not against the trophozoite form of Entamoeba histolytica, and it is the drug of choice for the treatment of asymptomatic infection, and it is also given in mild to moderate disease with or after the tissue amebicide for the eradication of cysts, and its adverse effects are nausea, abdominal cramps, flatulence, and rash. Now, idoquinol, it is also a luminal amebicide, and from the name you can guess that it is having iodine in its structure. Iodo, it has iodine in its structure. So iodoquinol is diiodohydroxyquin, and it is a halogenated hydroxyquinoline. It is an effective luminal amebicide. 90% of the drug is retained in the intestine and excreted in feces, and the remainder enters the circulation, has a half-life of 11 to 14 hours, and is excreted in urine as glucuronides. So you need to remember that it is having iodine in its structure. So it can produce anorexia, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. All these luminal amebicides, they will produce gastrointestinal adverse effects because they are staying in the lumen. It can also produce headache, rash, pruritus, thyroid enlargement, and these adverse effects are due to the presence of iodine. It may produce peripheral neuropathy and with visual dysfunction. This drug is also not so commonly used. So it should be taken with meals to limit the gastrointestinal toxicity, and it should be used with caution in patients with optic neuropathy because it can produce visual disturbances. In patients of renal or thyroid disease or non-amoebic hepatic disease, we have to use it with caution. It should be discontinued if it produces persistent diarrhea or signs of iodine toxicity like dermatitis, urticaria, pruritus, and fever. And it is contraindicated in patients with intolerance to iodine. So you must ask the patient if he is intolerant to iodine or previously he had iodism due to use of iodine or some drugs having iodine, then this drug is contraindicated in that patient. Paromomycin is also a luminal amebicide and it is an aminoglycoside. Paromomycin sulfate is an aminoglycoside antibiotic and is not significantly absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract. You all know that because it is highly polar. So it is used as a luminal amebicide. When we give it orally, it stays inside the lumen, it is not absorbed, and it kills the bacteria which are required by Entamoeba histolytica, because Entamoeba histolytica resides in the lumen in a symbiotic relationship with other bacteria of the intestine. So if we'll kill those bacteria, Entamoeba histolytica won't survive either. And it may be superior to diloxanide in asymptomatic infection. It is also used for the treatment of visceral leishmaniasis, and topically it can be used for the treatment of cutaneous leishmaniasis, and it is also used to treat cryptosporidiosis in AIDS patients. This is also a protozoal infection in immunocompromised patients. So these are the clinical indications of paromomycin. It can produce abdominal distress and diarrhea, and it should be avoided in patients with renal disease. So now let's check out the treatment of specific forms of amoebiasis. So the choice of a drug depends on the form of amoebiasis. You should know the drugs of choice. These are asked in exams. So if a person is asymptomatic carrier or he's having asymptomatic intestinal infection, what would be the drug of choice? Obviously, we'll give only luminal agents, and the drug of choice would be diloxanide furoate, and alternative drugs that could be used are paromomycin and iodoquinol. Then if the patient is having mild to moderate intestinal infection, then of course we'll give metronidazole plus a luminal agent. Metronidazole is a tissue amebicide. If he's having moderate intestinal infection, it means that the trophozoites have invaded the intestinal mucosa, so we have to give a tissue amebicide plus a luminal agent to eradicate the cysts. For severe intestinal infection, again metronidazole or tinidazole plus luminal agent. And for hepatic abscess and other extraintestinal disease, again the drug of choice is metronidazole plus luminal agent. Clear? So for asymptomatic disease, we only give luminal agent, and the drug of choice in luminal among the luminal agents is diloxanide furoate. And for mild to moderate intestinal infection, severe intestinal infection, hepatic abscess, amoeboma, or other extraintestinal diseases, the drug of choice is metronidazole plus a luminal agent. And alternative drugs you can see, for mild to moderate infection, we can use tinidazole instead of metronidazole, or we can use tetracycline or erythromycin plus a luminal agent. And for severe disease, we can use tetracycline or emetine, dihydroemetine plus a luminal agent. As we discussed earlier, that emetine and dihydroemetine are only used as backups for the severe intestinal disease or for the hepatic abscess, and only when metronidazole cannot be used. Plus, for liver abscess, chloroquine is used, and chloroquine can be used only for hepatic amoebiasis. So clear? Well, that's all for today. Let's summarize whatever we have done. So we discussed that after ingestion of contaminated food or water, the cysts, they enter into the intestinal lumen, and where they are transformed into trophozoites, and these trophozoites, if they will just remain here, or they will be encysted and they will be excreted out or expelled. This is the asymptomatic disease. They won't produce any symptom, and for that case we'll give luminal amebicides like diloxanide furoate, paromomycin and iodoquinol. But if it penetrates the intestinal wall, then we will give systemic amebicides, which is metronidazole, tinidazole. And if it enters the circulation and reaches the liver, produces abscess, then we'll give chloroquine or dihydroemetine along with metronidazole. As you were told that metronidazole is the most important of all these drugs, so let's summarize metronidazole. First of all, its mechanism of action. So metronidazole is basically active against anaerobic bacteria and protozoa because it requires ferredoxin for its bioactivation. Metronidazole is a prodrug and it undergoes a reductive bioactivation of its nitro group. Its nitro group is mainly responsible for its cidal action, and it undergoes reductive bioactivation by ferredoxin, which is present in the anaerobic bacteria and protozoa, and then it forms reactive cytotoxic products that interfere with the nucleic acid synthesis. And you need to remember that it is a cidal drug, means it will kill the bacteria and other pathogens against which it is effective. So this is its mechanism of action, and you should know that it is a prodrug and it undergoes a reductive bioactivation of its nitro group by ferredoxin to form reactive cytotoxic products that interfere with nucleic acid synthesis. Then the next most important question asked is about its antimicrobial spectrum. So as we know, it has antibacterial and antiprotozoal activity. So you can remember its spectrum by this mnemonic: A to H and TB. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, TB. So it is active against anaerobic bacteria, and as you know that the anaerobic infections above diaphragm, for that clindamycin is effective, and for anaerobic infections below the diaphragm, metronidazole is effective. Okay, then you should know the name of the anaerobic bacteria like Bacteroides fragilis, Clostridium difficile. Dracunculus medinensis is a helminth. It is also effective against that. Then Entamoeba histolytica is a protozoa. Fusobacterium is a bacteria. Giardia lamblia and Trichomonas vaginalis are protozoa, and Gardnerella vaginalis, H. pylori, and Veillonella are the bacteria. So this is the easy way to memorize the spectrum, and in this way you won't miss any of the pathogen. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, T, V. And by this, if you get a question on the clinical, about the clinical indications of metronidazole, then you can also use this mnemonic, because as you know that it is useful for the treatment of amoebiasis. Entamoeba histolytica produces amoebiasis. Giardiasis produced by Giardia lamblia. Trichomoniasis produced by Trichomonas vaginalis. These are the three protozoal diseases against which it is effective. And Dracunculus medinensis, it produced dracunculosis or guinea worm disease. Then coming to the bacteria, Clostridium difficile produces pseudomembranous colitis, and it is a drug of choice for the treatment of pseudomembranous colitis. Bacteroides fragilis, it produces intra-abdominal infections, and you know that metronidazole is used for the treatment of mixed anaerobic intra-abdominal infections. It is also responsible for brain abscess. Metronidazole is used for the treatment of brain abscess. Fusobacterium, it produces periodontal disease, and metronidazole is used in the treatment of periodontal disease. H. pylori induced peptic ulcer, this could be its clinical indication. And bacterial vaginosis, and Veillonella produces endocarditis and osteomyelitis. So if you know the spectrum, you can write the clinical indications very easily. If you find difficult to memorize the names of all these anaerobic microorganisms, then what can you do? You can memorize it by this mnemonic: get away from metro. Giardia lamblia, Entamoeba histolytica, Trichomonas vaginalis, and anaerobic bacteria. But it would be better if you memorize all these names, because only in that way you can score maximum marks. So easy peasy. Next, you know that when we talk about the drug interactions of metronidazole, it produces disulfiram-like reaction, and many students, they confuse that what is a disulfiram-like reaction. So when we did alcohol, we studied that if a person wants to quit alcohol, we give him a drug called disulfiram What it does, it inhibits the enzyme aldehyde dehydrogenase, and because of inhibition of that enzyme, aldehyde will accumulate in the body, and it will produce adverse effects like flushing, nausea, vomiting, headache, and the patient won't take alcohol, because if he's on disulfiram and whenever he'll take alcohol, he will experience these symptoms. So there are certain drugs which, when given with alcohol, they can produce disulfiram like reaction. So disulfiram was used intentionally, but these reactions, they occur unintentionally. If you give these drugs to the patient and the patient is alcoholic, he won't know and he will experience these symptoms. So you should know which are these drugs. You can memorize it by cyclic GMPs. Okay, CGMPs. C. Cephalosporins, cefotitan, cefoperazone, and cefamendol. These are the cephalosporins which produce disulfiram-like reaction. Then griseofulvin, which is an antifungal drug. Metronidazole, procarbazine, it is antineoplastic drug. And first generation sulfonylureas like chlorpropamide and tolbutamide. So you should memorize this list of drugs which can produce disulfiram-like reaction. Now the adverse effects. So first, the adverse effects, we'll discuss the ones affecting the oral cavity. Okay, the most common adverse effect is that it produces metallic taste. If you have taken flagyl, you know that its taste is really horrible and it produces a metallic taste, and this is the reason why patients don't want to take it again. Clear? It can produce furry tongue, stomatitis, glossitis, and opportunistic infection, which is oral candidiasis. Then it can produce nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. It can produce dark urine and dysuria. You have to explain the patient about this adverse effect, that he might get dark urine. Then it can produce headache. It can produce dizziness, weakness, ataxia, encephalopathy, paresthesia, certain neuropathic adverse effects. And if the patient develops that, you need to stop the drug. The patient can develop urticaria or Stevens-Johnson syndrome as well, skin rash. The patient can develop that as well. Clear? So these are the important adverse effects. Now is the quiz time. Just write down the number of the case studies, case study number 1, case study number 2, MCQ 1, MCQ 2, and their answers, and submit it in your WhatsApp group for attendance. So first case scenario, after a backpacking trip in the mountains, a 24-year-old man develops diarrhea. He acknowledges drinking stream water without purification, and you suspect he's showing symptoms of giardiasis. As the lab detection of cysts or trophozoites in the feces can be difficult, which drug will you give to treat the patient empirically? Just name the drug and write down its mechanism of action. Now the MCQs. A male patient presents with lower abdominal discomfort, flatulence, and occasional diarrhea. A diagnosis of intestinal amoebiasis is made and Entamoeba histolytica is identified in his diarrheal stools. The preferred treatment would be diloxanide furoate, idoquinol, metronidazole, metronidazole plus diloxanide furoate, and paromomycin, which would be the preferred treatment. Metronidazole is not effective in the treatment of amoebiasis, infections due to Bacteroides fragilis, infections due to Pneumocystis gyrovicii, pseudomembranous colitis, or trichomoniasis. That's all. I hope you have understood the topic. If you have any queries, you can ask in your WhatsApp group and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Go through the lecture properly. Take care of yourself. Have a good day. Allah Hafiz.